It's an AFC Championship edition of Bills by the Numbers, where we let the stats tell you where the Bills are at. We're presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Coming your way, the already lengthy history between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and what previous historical matchups have yielded, and his history on Josh Allen's side. Steve is quizzed on AFC playoff history, and we'll have our one burning question. Let's make some hay! Welcome into this special playoff edition of Bills by the Numbers. He is Bills Wall of Famer Steve Tasker. I'm Bills play-by-play man Chris Brown. And by now, Bills fans and Chiefs fans are all too familiar with the head-to-head matchups witnessed the last 5 seasons between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. In the regular season, they've been triumphant. And in the playoffs, they've been gut-wrenching. But the Josh Allen-Patrick Mahomes duels have rarely disappointed and have always been entertaining. First, some numbers here on Bills by the Numbers. Allen and Mahomes are the first pair of quarterbacks to meet 4 times in the playoffs before age 30. And they lead the first 2 teams to meet 4 times in a 5-year span of postseason since the Packers and Niners did it from 1995 to 1998 when Brett Favre and Steve Young were dueling. Allen and Mahomes are also the first pair of non-divisional quarterbacks to meet 9 times in a 5-season span since the 1960s. That's when AFL stars Jack Kemp and Len Dawson, also of the Bills and Chiefs, met from 1963 to 1967. So, how might this matchup in the AFC title game between Allen and Mahomes be different, if at all, from what we witnessed when they squared off in Week 11?
Well, the numbers will be different, the stats will be different, and that's probably about it. These two guys are really good when the chips are down. They kind of keep the play alive. They keep putting the ball back into the other's court. You have to answer in these games, and Mahomes and Allen are 2 of the best in the league right now of answering.
Yeah.
And the Bills look a lot different than they have in the past because the alpha receiver's not there. They've got a bunch of guys who we never know before the game who's going to emerge. Now, certainly, Khalil Shakir has been a big factor and been consistently targeted. But the running backs have been a huge difference maker in this season. The Bills are running it maybe better than they have since Thurman Thomas came in. That's how good they're running. I've had better years and guys with better numbers, but as a group, the contributions they're making are bigger than and more successful than any group of running backs or any single running back in recent memory, certainly since Thurman. Ray Davis and James Cook have been difference makers this year.
Don't leave out Ty Johnson.
And Ty Johnson. That's why this team looks different, and I think that's what's going to look different about this game. The contributors for Buffalo. Their offensive line is an engine. They're a machine up front. And the Chiefs, in this game, compared to some of the other matchups we've seen, their offensive line is probably the best one the Bills have faced.
I'm not 100% on board with that because they got Joe Tooney out at left tackle, and he's holding on for dear life out there, doing the best job he can.
He's better than the tackles we've seen in the playoffs before.
Yes, but he does not fit the prototype. I mean, he's a little short-armed. He's had trouble. He has given up pressure since he's been over there for 5 games. Here's the thing for me. We've seen the Chiefs win games because they control the tempo of the game, maybe better than any team has over the last 5 seasons. They control how the game unfolds, and because of that, they usually end up on the winning end of those games, no matter how razor-thin the score might be. They find a way to pull it out by controlling the game. Tempo, play calling, down and distance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The Bills are now in that genre of teams because with their offensive line and their run game, they have found a way to mimic the way Chiefs control games from start to finish. The Bills might be the second best team in the league at doing that, right behind the Chiefs. So that's why this game, to me, is different than the previous playoff iterations we have witnessed. They are better at controlling games just the same way the Chiefs do.
Do you think that means a 21-22 game, 21-24 game, instead of a 42-38 game?
I'm not certain of that, only because while the Chiefs' defense is still very good, I don't believe they're as good as they were last year. I think they missed L'Jarius Sneed on the back end from a coverage perspective. And also, I think the Bills are more difficult to defend because they are not one or two player dependent as they have been in recent years with Diggs, for example, or everything's on Allen, for example. That is not the case anymore. I don't think the Chiefs can necessarily key on any one thing because there are other threats that the Bills' offense can throw at you and be successful with. They've proven that through the course of the season. I don't know that the Chiefs are as diverse an offense as the Bills have been. So I think that's what makes it interesting, and I think that's why the score could get up into the high 20s, low 30s again here. Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are the only pair of quarterbacks who have more playoff meetings than Allen and Mahomes. They had 5. Sunday will be number 4 for Allen and Holmes. And as we know, Mahomes has won all 3 prior playoff meetings between the Bills and Chiefs, including one AFC title game in 2020. The other 2 wins came in the divisional round. No quarterback has ever beat another quarterback 4 straight times in the postseason. So does that past history encourage you to believe that Allen may finally get the best of Mahomes this time around? Are you already wringing your hands here?
No, it doesn't. No, because
does nothing for you.
No. Those games have nothing to do with this game.
Well,
nothing. Absolutely nothing. Both these guys are elite at, like I said, keeping the ball in play and giving their team a chance. Those last games just prove how good this one could be.
Yeah.
That it has no effect on the outcome. These two teams are different than they were 12 months ago. And so while history tells you how difficult it is, history doesn't affect the future from this end of this game. So, this game's going to be different. And we've seen Pat Mahomes do a lot of things nobody else has done before. Mm-hmm. This may just be one more of them. Bills fans hope not. But then again, this is one of the all-time, this is Steve Young, Brett Favre. This is Jim Kelly, Dan Marino.
Yeah.
This is, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's an epic battle. It always is. And Josh has thrown some really good punches, and this team has really thrown some good punches at this Chiefs team. But they've always answered, and that's why this game is so intriguing. So those games in the past and the history and the numbers mean nothing coming into this game.
Yeah, I do think the way the Bills are playing this season gives you more confidence that they can pull it off, even at Arrowhead. But as we know, there are no gimmies, and if you look at the odds makers, they think this game's a coin flip. So
that's
make
true.
Make of that what you will.
Yeah, this team, the Bills won't flinch going into Arrowhead.
No.
They've been there. This is a division game. You could have realigned the NFL 5 years ago and put the Bills in a division with the Chiefs, and they would have met, almost the same amount of times if one of them wasn't any good. That kind of thing. I mean, they see each other twice a year, period. It's the way it goes. And so the Bills have had success in Arrowhead. They've beaten them there in the regular season.
Yeah.
So it's, they won't flinch.
With a minimum of 300 pass attempts as a qualifier, Allen and Mahomes rank first and second in lowest interception rate in playoff history, as both have excelled in protecting the football. Allen's percentage, 0.9%, Mahomes, 1.1%. The Bills, in fact, as a team, have gone 21 straight games without losing the turnover battle, and that includes Buffalo's loss in the divisional round at home to Kansas City last year when they were a +1, and their Week 11 win over the Chiefs when they were a +2, with Mahomes throwing a pair of interceptions. The Bills' defense has lived by the takeaway all season and led the league in turnover margin at +24. Counting this year's playoffs, they're now a +27. The Chiefs are a +6, and Buffalo has 15 more takeaways this season than Kansas City. Is that considered a definitive advantage, or are takeaways too unpredictable to count on?
I think it's too unpredictable to count on. That's why, But it is a way that the Bills, I mean, you can make an argument that the Baltimore Ravens had a better roster and were more talented top to bottom than the Bills, but the Bills beat them with +3. It is a weapon if you can wield it, but it's unpredictable at best.
Yeah, the circumstances have to present themselves, or your opponent has to make an error.
I'll say this. The Bills' offense is good enough to put pressure on their opponents to make them put the ball at risk. So it does put it out there, make it available to the defense to punch it out and stuff. So there is that as well. The Bills' offense is good enough so that whoever they're playing knows they got to keep their foot on the gas. And when you do that, you're going to put the ball at risk. You're going to throw it, you're going to toss it, you're going to ball handling, all of that stuff. It's a problem for their opponents because you never go into a shell and you can't just hand off. Even with Derrick Henry, the Ravens couldn't just hand it off and put the game away because of the Bills' offense. So there is that. But it is an unpredictable statistic.
Yeah. There are only 2 games this season where the Bills did not get a takeaway. The Rams game, which they lost by 2, and the Denver playoff game. Knicks and the Broncos did not turn it over, but they still lost by 24 points. So make of that what you will, but I do think the Bills go into this game, especially defensively, believing they can turn the Chiefs over. Now, the Chiefs don't do that, and as a matter of fact, since Mahomes threw the 2 picks against the Bills in Week 11, he hasn't turned it over since.
Right.
It's a 7-game streak without turning the ball over. So he is good at protecting the football. You might have to look elsewhere to find turnover opportunities. If there is one troubling historical statistic, it's that the Bills are on a lengthy losing streak when it comes to road playoff games. Buffalo has lost 7 straight road playoff games. Their last postseason win on the road came in Miami in the 1992 AFC title game. Steve's team beat the Dolphins 29-10. How helpful is it that the Bills have played the Chiefs in their building during the postseason, both in 2020 and 2021?
It is helpful for the guys who have been here.
We're only talking about a handful of guys,
yeah.
though. We're probably talking about Dawkins, Allen, Taron Johnson, Matt Milano.
Spencer Brown. The offensive line, except for Osiris.
Yeah, Greg Rousseau.
David Edwards has been around. That's not going to be too much for them. Yeah, so it and on the back end, maybe Taron is okay, that kind of stuff.
Milano. It
Rasul
helps.
Douglas is long in the tooth. He's not in the Milano. Yeah. So there's enough guys to settle the other
to
guys
not be
down,
swallowed
to
by
not
the
be
moment.
swallowed by it. But there's no question. Communication is difficult in Arrowhead. It's always an issue you got to deal with, and it does limit you in your ability to communicate. I think that is a factor, but I don't think this team is not as big a factor as it would be for some other team.
My biggest concern with this team having to go on the road now in the postseason is how it will limit what Buffalo likes to do offensively to some extent. And what I mean by that is the Bills' offense seems to excel when they use a lot of pre-snap motion. It provides Josh Allen with tells about what is coming from the defense. And most coaches and quarterbacks will tell you it's more difficult to use more pre-snap motion on the road because communication is a factor. So you might not see as much motion pre-snap from the Bills' offense as we've seen in the first 2 playoff games, and that can limit you in terms of, A, what you can throw at a defense, B, how much information you can glean from a defense pre-snap by using motion, and then C, by having a reduced menu, that might inhibit your ability to move the football, put points on the board, et cetera.
There's no question it's part of the reason they're 10-0 at home. Their ability to communicate and the things they do pre-snap help Josh to play effectively and be more successful. If you can't do that, now all of a sudden the Chiefs have got you playing left-handed, and that's the issue.
All right, we pivot now to the numbers game, where Steve will be tested on NFL playoff quarterback history. Let's do it. Okay, earlier in the podcast, we mentioned, Steve, how Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes will be the 3rd quarterback pair to face each other 4 times in the playoffs in a 5-year span. We told you Brett Favre and Steve Young were one of the other pairs, 95 to 98. Which pair of quarterbacks were the 3rd?
Can I get a clue? Is it Is it earlier than 95, or is it?
It is earlier, yes.
I'm going to say John Elway, Bernie Kosar.
That is not correct.
Oh,
That's a good guess, though.
That's a really good guess. Thank you.
I'll give you a hint. It's even earlier than them.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm. So think about teams that meant a lot.
Roger Staubach. No.
It's in the AFC.
Oh, I know who it is. It was Dan Pastorini, Terry Bradshaw.
No.
Is Terry Bradshaw one of them?
He is one of them.
I'll say Terry Bradshaw. I don't know who the other quarterbacks were at that.
Who had to play the Steelers all the time and couldn't get over the hump?
It was the Oilers for one thing. And
Not them.
Then it was
another team.
Oh, Kenny Stabler.
Kenny Stabler and Terry Bradshaw from 1973 to 1976.
Yeah.
Okay, question 2.
I got that one.
Eventually. If the Chiefs somehow advance to the Super Bowl, they have a chance to become just the second team ever to win 4 Super Bowls in a 6-year span. Who is the only other team to have done that?
Oh, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Correct. 74 to 79.
79, yeah.
Yeah, they were
They won
wagon.
2. They were out of it 2. Then they were back in it 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Question 3. That was a layup. Question 3. As we outlined earlier, Allen and Mahomes come into this Sunday having met in the playoffs 4 times before either turns 30 years old, with this meeting coming up Sunday. That sets an NFL mark. There are 2 other pairs of quarterbacks who have met 3 times in the postseason before either of them turned 30. And both of these quarterback pairings played during your playing era. Can you name either one of them?
Marino Kelly.
No.
Elway. Kosar.
Yes, you got that one. You want to try to get the other one?
Yeah, I'll try.
NFC.
I'll say
During your playing era.
Steve Young, Troy Aikman.
That's a good guess. You got half of it.
Steve Young. Okay.
Aikman and
what is it? Sims?
it's actually Brett Favre.
Oh,
Brett Favre.
Brett Favors.
That's right. Brett
All right.
Favre. And question 4, Steve. Mahomes has 3 straight playoff wins over Allen, tying a mark with 6 other quarterbacks who did the same against the same opposing quarterback. So there's 6 sets of players who have beaten the same guy 3 times in the postseason.
Right.
Can you give me half of them?
Elway, Kosar.
Yes, Elway over Kosar, 86 to 89.
Bradshaw, Stabler.
No, that was not 3 in a row. Did it twice.
Kelly, Marino.
Correct. 90 to 95.
I will say this is over a 5-year span.
3 straight playoff wins.
Okay.
Over
Over
the same quarterback.
Stabler, Fouts.
No.
Oh, I thought I had it.
Some have been mentioned already in the numbers game here.
Aikman, Favre.
Aikman over Favre, 93 to 95. The other 3, Favre over Steve Young, 95 to 97.
Okay.
Manning over Brady,
there you
2006 to 2015. He didn't beat him for like 2 or 3 times and then won like 3 in a row.
Right.
Over Brady. And then Brady over poor Phillip Rivers, 2020 to 2023. Those are the total of 6. Pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's the numbers game. Bills fans, get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Just download the app today to play any way you want. Plus, with live betting, you'll get updated odds on games that have already started. Best of all, you get paid your winnings fast. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the Buffalo Bills. All right, you know what time it is. We turn now to our one burning question. Besides the obvious answer of turnovers, Steve, what do you believe will be the next most game-swinging factor in Sunday's AFC title game?
I think it is Bills run-pass ratio.
Okay.
If they run it more than they pass it, I think they win. Now, that doesn't mean they can pass. They can't, it may be that the Chiefs jump in on it and they can throw it to. Now, they can still throw it to win it. But I think if the Bills run more than they pass, it's a dead giveaway.
It's interesting that you mention that because we've used that statistic in our closing figures in the past. In Josh Allen starts, when the Bills run the ball more than 50% of the time, if you don't count the throwaway game in Week 18 when Josh played a single snap and then exited, Bills are 36-0.
Oh, there you go.
So that is a very good choice to make. I will say they've got to stay in manageable down and distance, which kind of caters to your run game argument, because you want to stay out of an area where Steve Spagnuolo can get exotic with his blitz calls, whether they're zero blitzes or different pressure packages. If you can run the football and stay in manageable down and distance, you kind of take that away from Spagnuolo to use as a tool to stop your offense. So mine kind of works in concert with yours, but I'm just going to say stay on schedule on offense. Our closing figure deals with the ever-elusive three-peat in the NFL. Obviously, the Chiefs are still in the running to pull that off. They are the fourth team with the chance to three-peat to reach the conference championship game. The previous three teams, the 1976 Steelers, the 1990 49ers, and the 1994 Cowboys, all lost the conference title game. In this case, we would certainly like to see history repeat itself for a fourth straight time.
Listen, I never won a Super Bowl, but getting back to another Super Bowl for our team, I think, particularly getting back to the second one after losing the first one, it was predicated on the fact that we lost it. And we were on a mission to get back. And winning it and coming back and putting together another season and doing it, one of the things that happens with these teams, like the Kansas City Chiefs, even like the team that I was on way back in the day, and I'm sure that the Steelers would tell you the same thing, as well as the Raider teams that were good, and the Niners teams and the Cowboy teams, the guys that were going back multiple times, the level of acceptability for practice, for preparation, for off-season regime, for the whole program, your like Sean McDermott's process starts to be only acceptable at a very high level.
Yeah.
You are the whole building is built on excellence, and it is a given with the guys that have been there, the core group of guys. So the Chiefs are on this role where their level of acceptability is way above anybody else's because of just the way they do things.
Yeah.
And they're, so once you get into that, only when you start to lose key elements and key players and key coaches it starts to drop because the inner knowledge, the institutional knowledge of how you do things starts to be lost because you lose players and coaches.
The 94 Cowboys lost to the 49ers. The 90 49ers lost to the Giants. The 76 Steelers lost to the Raiders. The 76 Steelers, widely considered to be one of the best teams ever to not win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think the 2007 Patriots might have an argument. But I went back and looked at the 76 Steelers, Steve. They started the season 1-4. They won their last 9 games, and they held their opponents on that 9-game winning streak
to like 7 points.
To 28 total points.
Yeah, total
including 5 shutouts.
Yeah.
Their point differential over those final 9 games, just those 9 games, plus 206. That is bananas.
They were waxing people.
Oh,
because
my God.
They had Lenny Dawson, John Stallworth, Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, Rocky Blyer.
And then a defense that was
their
the steel
offensive
curtain.
Their offensive line was, littered with Hall of Famers. So they were ringing it up, and that defense was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
that defense had 6 or 7 Hall of Famers.
5 shutouts.
5 shutouts is nuts. I mean, even in the 3 yards in a cloud of dust days, 5 shutouts is stupid.
Yeah,
like it's just
crazy. So that
plus 206 in those 9 games.
That 76 Steeler team,
and they didn't get there.
Yeah, they didn't get there.
That is
they
all.
They did not get there. And I think one of the thing that happened, I think they got injured right at the end. I think they started dropping some guys. I think that's what happened. I may be wrong about that, but I think they lost a couple of guys to injury, and it was like, and then they got a team, the Raiders that, could do it.
That is all for this edition. Be sure to subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use so you know when you can catch our next episode. Because when you need to know about the Bills, you need to check Bills by the Numbers. For Steve Tasker, I'm Chris Brown. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time, everybody.